And we're live. Content provided at the event is for general information only and not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. Any performance reference is historical and no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Wow, it's been a minute. Any economic forecasts set forth during the event may not develop as predicted, and there can be no guarantee that any strategy will be successful. These thoughts and opinions are those of Gimbal Financial and do not represent the views of LPL Financial. Securities are offered through LPL Financial, a member of FINRA and SIPC, and investment advice is offered through Gimbal Financial, a registered investment advisor and separate entity from LPL Financial.
Wow, man, did you hear that computer-generated voice at the beginning?
Sure did. I don't know if our guests heard that, but caught me off guard.
Me too. Well, Doug was calm, cool, and collected. He wasn't fazed by that.
Well, it's nice.
That's how he rolls.
I'm sorry I had to cancel on everybody last week. I was looking forward to spending some time with you. But last minute, I was able to get into a meeting with a surgeon about a knee issue I'm having. So sorry I had to cancel last week.
Well, you kind of popped the tab. What do we need to know about your surgery, Doug?
Oh, Tuesday, just 3 holes. It's amazing what they can do. I'm anxious to see if they're using one of those, what is it, a Da Vinci?
Yeah, Da Vinci.
Yeah. I'm really curious. I hope I'm not, I want to be able to see it. Maybe I'll be knocked out. I don't know how that works.
Yeah, for those that don't know, that surgeons use robots to help them now, and that's one of the ones that I'm aware of is called Da Vinci. And
yeah, if you Google that, it's really cool.
Yeah,
I did get to get an MRI, and is that what it's called? Yeah, and that was really cool too. Like just the machinery involved and the tools involved today for healthcare, it blew me away. I have no idea how expensive of a machine this thing was, but it was impressive that sound can vibrate and bounce back and forth and create a picture. I was in awe of it.
I think this is one of my philosophical beliefs. Our humanity's unquenchable desire to keep living has enabled capitalists to create devices to allow that to happen for a finite period of time, but they don't come cheaply. And so that's built some of the angst in our culture, because you can get life extended, but those things like an MRI machine or the robotic surgery, those aren't inexpensive devices.
No, they are not. And, for you guys out there who have an HSA, I'm in the great dilemma right now. Do I pay cash to hit my deductible, or do I use some of my HSA money? And I think we've talked about HSA.
Don't use your HSA, is my opinion.
The HSA is such a cool investment. It is really hard to touch. And Caroline and I, we haven't been having kids for a little while, so we haven't been rev limiter bouncing off our deductible. But yeah, so that's the great dilemma right now as I think through it, is what does my cash flow situation look like? And then what about the HSA? And so if you've been there and you've got some advice, call me.
And I had a conversation with a client about their HSA yesterday. So if you have an HSA and you have questions about what we're talking about, give us a call. We'll talk you through the strategies. It's the only triple tax-free vehicle that I'm aware of. And so it's worth paying close attention and not neglecting that as one of your financial planning devices.
And it can be invested.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, we don't offer those types of solutions.
Not yet.
So
one day we
maybe
will.
someday we will. Yeah, maybe soon.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you have an HSA, talk with whoever your provider is, because if you have a big balance in there, maybe you take a portion of it and invest it.
I would be as bold to say that if you had to choose between your HSA and reducing your contribution to your 401k, I'd probably even bias somebody towards reducing your 401k. It's that significant of a difference. And again, we can go into the details with you one-on-one on why you might think about that. I don't know anybody else talking about that, but pay attention to your HSA. I don't even think this was on our notes, was it?
I didn't have it on my notes either.
Yeah.
Well, while we're on the topic of health, should we dive into the COVID tracker?
Let's see what you got, Amanda.
Well, since it's been a couple weeks since I've personally been here, I know we missed last week's. On the topic of health, this is last week's COVID tracker. So this is from the 21st. I won't dive into this much, but this little factoid up here in the upper right-hand corner talks about how people that have been infected with, this is particularly in terms of the SARS outbreak, but in general, it just says like long-lasting immunity from any prior infection. So you guys have lived a little longer than I have. You've probably been infected by more things in your, what do you say?
What's that supposed to mean?
It means we've got a good immune systems, Doug.
That's exactly what I'm saying. So you'll recover quickly from your surgery and hopefully no infections. No, but that's really all I had from that one. So even I know I have not had COVID, but I had something else a few weeks ago. So that probably boosted my immune system in some way, shape, or form. So that's all I gotta say. So we're all getting sick no matter our age.
I have long not been a what do they call it? The Purex or Purell and all those hand sanitizers. I've not been a big fan of those. My opinion, and I'm not a scientist. I stayed at a Holiday Inn once, but I just always thought those sort of things might decrease your own immune system because your body, as you keep killing things that the body normally would fight off for you, it just seems like it doesn't give your body the chance to fight off things. And that's the nature of our bodies, is they're miracles and they can fight off things. So that was a really interesting fact there about the immunity that people had from the, what year was that? The
2003
SARS. Yeah. So that's pretty crazy.
And with just our boosted immunity between living and doing things and getting infected with other things and with the vaccines, we as Indiana are in this pocket of being completely open with no restrictions. And we're surrounded by states that still have those mandates. And Keith pointed out this morning that if you look at where we lie in this little part of the country, not so little, but a lot of our neighboring states are mirroring the East Coast. So even though I thought we were in the Midwest, which I'm pretty sure we still are, we've got states that are around us that are taking it just as seriously with their unvaccinated people than other states, than we are at least. So bring your monies into Indiana. You can open up. We're open, depending on the business. You don't have to worry.
The speed of innovation really blows me away. Like when I think about this and how many people across the United States are vaccinated already, the fact that there's a vaccine that even exists today blows me away. Like the kitchen stove took 187 years for it to reach 50% of the population, and the telephone was 66 years. The smartphone was 7 years. And the speed of innovation on this vaccine, it's been a global effort, but it's just as fast as, could there be anything faster that has been created and come to use? So even the vaccination rates, I know a lot of people would like to see more, but it's quite remarkable where it is today.
Amanda, could you scroll up on that one? I wanted to point something out.
Yeah. Was it on this one?
Yeah, that is the very top chart, the COVID tests. And I don't know if you remember, if you could go back to one of our former videos back around Thanksgiving and between Thanksgiving and the beginning of the year, I remember one of our dialogues, we were pointing out how everything tends to have the shape of a bell curve. And we were pointing out how this thing was basically over before anybody else was saying. I'm not pounding our chest. I'm just saying, if you look at that chart and you look over to like July of last year, where the blue kind of peaks out over the orange, and then you look at where we are today. It's formed a perfectly normal bell curve, and this thing is coming to an end. I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, but just mathematically, this thing, the chart to the right, you see the bell curve there, and this thing is, it's at the point that if you want to keep worrying and be anxious as a person, you're gonna have to pick something new.
Well, and that type of chart is true in many different situations. When you see rapid increases, things that increase rapidly, decrease rapidly. And so that's pretty normal.
Yeah. And so I before we jumped into this, I threw out a random thing. What are you afraid of? And I think if we're going to be honest as individuals, as humans with ourselves, that's kind of the things we need to, moving out of this, because I was traveling last week and I experienced different avenues of places around the country. And Amanda asked me about the chart down below of the states, and one of the states kind of stuck out like a sore thumb was New Mexico there. And the reason that New Mexico is still closed is that the Navajo Nation is having a hard time with the COVID still. And so I don't know what their beliefs on the vaccine and things of that nature, but that's why that one sticks out. But as I was coming back across the country, and it all happened when we went from kind of everybody mask up, and by the time we headed back east, everything was almost unmasked. And so it leaves everybody kind of thinking, what are they going to do next? And I know personally, there's not a ton of things that I'm afraid of. I would say one of the things I'm frankly afraid of is losing our clients' money. And so I've had to learn how to manage money better because of that. I can't be emotional about that. I just have to know that's something I prefer not to do. And it causes me to be proactive rather than sit in the fetal position in the corner, worrying about something. There's things I can do, training, make decisions better and things of that nature that can help me with that particular fear.
I think one of the things that helps with that particular fear is just data, looking at data. And so we've been doing the COVID tracker for about a year now, and it's data points. There's other data points that are out there. That when we're looking at managing money for clients, that's another thing we really focus on, are the data points, because it's easy for your feeler to go this way or that, depending on your experience or your time frame or your entry points. And so it's just super helpful to have data in the past that can help us point to where we might be going in the future.
Yeah, and I think that the fact that is something that caused me, I'm not staying awake at night, as a young man, I probably did, but the fact that you as clients entrust us with your resources and you're entrusting large sums of money to us, we don't take that lightly. Like, that is a serious responsibility, and we respond accordingly.
Yeah. Speaking of responding accordingly, what's the data telling us today? You want to switch over and take a look at the
Did you have anything else on those, Amanda?
Nope, that's it.
By the way, I saw this week on the internet that it was National Bee Day, and that photo over your shoulder there is a really cool photo. If you make it into Gimbal, check that out sometime. It's one of the cooler things in the office besides YouTube.
I think it might even be National Cheeseburger Day or something like that.
Today?
I think it's today. LJ and I tried the Marky Mark burger. What's that?
Oh yeah, the Wahlburgers.
The Wahlburger, and we liked it okay, but we immediately drove over to McDonald's.
Oh wow!
And had a cheeseburger just to compare it to.
Marky, don't listen to this. We really respect you. You're a superhero to some of us.
We were looking for data points. Yeah. Went from a $12 cheeseburger to a $2 cheeseburger.
Yeah, that is awesome. I'm gonna. So you did not have anything, Amanda? Let me share our screen here. This is the Nasdaq, which I've got on the screen here. It was showing some hesitancy last couple weeks. It's firmed up a little bit. We'll see how it does through the summer months. one that's really been intriguing me, Doug, is the small caps. They are really motivating me to look at them closely. That looks like that might be an opportunity. We try to see things that kind of stabilize, and we're not recommending you buy this. It's just what we look for is when a investment can, these run-ups like this, you can get trapped into trying to get into them, but at some point they flatten out, and they might give you a chance to get in if you missed the run-up. And so you kind of saw that over here back in the summer months last year, and this thing's really beginning to show some strength again. So the small cap or the small size companies are really interesting to me. What did you want to look at?
Well, the small caps are the real innovators that are out there. And so they're the ones taking risks, developing new ways of doing business, whether that's production or services. They're the companies that we've probably never heard of. They're still big, they have jets, but they're the companies that we really have never heard of doing the innovation and the work that some of the bigger companies might be buying out someday. Like even with the vaccine stuff, imagine all the small companies that went in towards getting the vaccine out. I've been looking at a rotation lately. You look at think about some of the market leaders in the past year, and there seems to have been a rotation. And that theme, you could pull up like the S&P 500 if you want. That theme has really been on display with the S&P 500. These aren't necessarily, tech concentrated or healthcare concentrated. These are some of the bigger companies that are out there. And the play really has been based on kind of like if you look back, what inflated in 2020? Well, the price of wood, how much did that go up? 100%. Well, you look at what didn't go up, and those were the airlines, the hotels, business people still aren't traveling like they were.
Right.
Rental cars, those prices went down. And so what went down during that time could be coming back in favor today just by demand coming back on. So several of these S&P 500 type companies have benefited from that.
I'm sure I've pointed out my lack of appreciation for the government involvement over the last year. I'm kind of a free enterprise person, and I think a lot of the challenges that we've gone through economically were exacerbated by the federal government, and that you and I and all of our clients as consumers, I think, are intelligent enough to make the right decisions. But when governments get involved in those situations, governments historically are not good allocators of scarce resources. So when they get involved, then you have supply and demand dysfunctionality. So we see that right now with the government overpaying on the unemployment. So now we can't get employees in stores. I tried to go to the restaurant down the road earlier this week, and they're not open inside because they can't get employees. And one of the COVID trackers that you showed earlier, Amanda, said a high percentage of the states now, or at least 40%, I can't remember what it said, are stopping the unemployment. They're not going to let it go until September, like other states are. And just seeing those things has a cause and effect on the marketplace. And so that old idea that with every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Well, one of those I was thinking about was what you mentioned was the rental cars. And so because the government kind of shut down travel, the rental cars had these parking lots full of cars, right? And then because of all the disruptions that went on, we had semiconductors that were having problems with their functionality and getting them delivered to us. And then with that, we've got the Ford plant. I think it down in Florida or in Kentucky. I can't remember where it is. They've got all these pickup trucks sitting in a parking lot because they can't get the semiconductor to get the pickup trucks to work. And so all those things have this equal and opposite reaction. And so I was meeting with a client yesterday that wants to rent a car, and the car rental will be $4,000 a week and they're going to use it to drive from point A to point B and then from point B back to the airport. And so what happened is that the rental car companies, being normal for enterprise people, realized I'm not renting these cars because there's a shortage of cars. We're going to sell our fleet. So they sell the fleet. Now the economy opens up and people are starting to travel again. They're booking their airlines, they're booking their hotels. And then when they get ready to book that car, they're going, whoa. So those are the kind of things that happen when the government gets involved in the supply chain, in my opinion.
And in the supply chain, we were in the middle of a change. I mean, there was a lot of new technology happening. One of the areas that I really am interested in and like are fintech type investments. And, I think I wasn't using Venmo 2 years ago.
Right.
And so what do? Western Union some money? I mean there's new technology, there's new innovations taking place. And those disruptions will create supply and demand issues. And so that's something that I think will be very interesting going out of 2021, is when the business travelers and the businesses start doing business again and people start going back to work, what will that look like? And where will the money flow?
Yeah, I mean, all those things are exciting. Like this particular person was traveling to Jackson, Wyoming, and I was telling them, and if we have any hippies watching, I don't want to offend you, but my experience has been any of those communities like Jackson Hole, trying to think of other examples, but where there's outdoor activity, where they've got rafting, they like Moab, Utah, those kind of places. There's a bunch of hippies there, and they're all just scrounging around for money. And so once they figure out there's a rental car shortage, my guess is you'll be able to hire these guys and to sit in the backseat of their old mangy Camry and get from point A to point B in a whole different Uber experience. But I think that's what I won't be surprised if we hear stories like that this summer as people start going back into the world traveling.
Its unemployment rates are what, 6%, 6.1%. I think it's a great opportunity for all you kids out there listening right now, where you can be choosy on where you want to work. You can aim for an employer that would invest in you, and you'd make some money too, but you could pick your job right now in that entry field, just because there's such a shortage in the entry level worker space right now. And so I had this conversation with my son, and there's like a handful of companies around Indianapolis that I think are just awesome. They're great brand names. And if you're in college, if you're in high school, I would say dream big and go for some employment right now. You can make some money.
I think not only having the initiative to do that, but you also will establish your resume. You're going to get your name on, you're going to get that company's name on your resume. You're going to also build rapport with those businesses, because they know there's a lot of employees that would rather take the unemployment check than come to work. So you're going to establish a reputation that's going to be a big deal.
Yeah. What else about the future is getting you excited, Keith?
Well, those ideas of things opening up, and I kind of see the economy as just like it's not quite like Katrina was when we went down to do disaster relief in Katrina. There's opportunities everywhere, but I see it similar to that right now, that the opportunities out there are being created even today. People are having to rethink things. I think consumer behavior is going to shift from where it was 6 to 12 months ago. And so I think there's a lot of cool opportunities.
What's that thing on your arm?
My Fitbit here?
Yeah, I was reading that like wearables are up like 60%.
Yeah.
And that goes back to the Internet of Things. I mean, it's connected, it's a thing. And whether it's your appliance, your car, I mean, whatever it is, I mean, people weren't wearing those 5 years ago.
Right.
And so there's a lot of newness happening. And that tracks with some bigger employers. That would track to somebody who's and maybe has your insurance, and they can gauge how healthy you are. It's just incredible.
I've got a friend, I just learned this week, her Apple Watch is connected to her insurance, and they actually get points for exercising. So she's building up points, and trading them in for gift cards and everything like that.
And so gym memberships may have dropped off 50%. I'm making that number up during COVID, but because of the watch and the connectivity to the health insurance, maybe we see a resurgence in gym memberships. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I personally think that there's just a desire in the souls of humanity to connect with other people, and some of those things that people have been doing individually, I think we're going to see probably a pretty quick reconnection of relationships. That I think that vacuum there is just going to explode. But I could be wrong. I don't know the changes in psyche of everybody, but I do. At a client meeting yesterday, their first question to me is, "Do you hug?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm a hugger, so let's do it." And so those sort of longings are there in the hearts of people. So it's going to shift a lot of consumer behavior, and the opportunities today are huge. I'm excited about the future.
One of the things about the future of Gimbal Financial that just really does get us excited, and had the opportunity to thank somebody for it yesterday, it's just generational business. I think one of the biggest wins is when we can do business with another generation, your kids, grandkids, and that's the future. So if you do have somebody who's wanting to get together and talk about this kind of thing, whether it's their HSA that they're looking at, or their 401k, or they're thinking about where they might want to go to work, or what does their net worth even look like, those are discussions that we would love to be having. And we live in a fee conscious world, and we'd entertain that conversation with no costs, where we could get a conversation going to steer people in the right direction.
I don't know if I coined it, but I used the term family wealth yesterday to offer some financial planning suggestions to the parents on how they might help their adult children think through some decisions. And I'm going to put some ideas of those in the next anchor that I write. And I think there's some creative ideas just to open your minds of things that might be a lot different in the next 10 or 20 years, in ways that you can help the overall family wealth in your decision grid.
So I think don't be anxious. There's future out there. There's hope out there. If there's stuff that's causing you some fear about your money or global macro events, let's talk about it. We may not have the answers, but we can look to some data points like we started off with the COVID tracker and make some decisions. I think that's part of it, is just making some decisions and saying, this is where we're going. These are the tools we're using to get there.
My daughter's boyfriend, Kevin, has a new future starting this week. He got out of the Army this week. Thank you for your service, Kevin. And that reminds me of just all you families out there that do have military members and that have paid the ultimate price. That we're just honored to have military involvement, investments, and people, and we just are humbled that people would offer the ultimate sacrifice so that we might have these discussions. We might have the freedom to have an optimistic and a positive look to the future. So I hope everybody has a great Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
See you guys soon.